welcome to The Real Study with your hosts, MrSniDBitS.
I was pleasantly surprised. It was funny, it was fun, it kept the spirit alive.
BlackGirlMarvel.
I cried laughing. That was hilarious.
Tylermakesfilms.
It's like so much depth because like nowadays it's, you know, you got A shot, B shot.
Allthemoviethings.
There's some great like wide shots in this.
Lieutenant Commander Ray.
Their love enduring through time is what connected to me the most.
And me, the Real Study movie voice guy.
But this was the first time where I got to see it like told in a way where I was like, oh man.
Let's go to the poster wall.
Good evening and welcome to The Real Study. My name is MrSniDBitS, and with me as always is BlackGirlMarvel, Tylermakesfilms, and back with us after a month of being away is Allthemoviethings. Welcome back, sir.
Yay.
Good to have you back.
Good to be back. I'm excited.
And it feels so good.
So this is going to be a little bit different of an episode. We have only one movie. We've only ever done this at one other time when it was Chippendale's Rescue Rangers. This time it is the 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace, which that hurts my head to think about. But we are now. Phantom Menace is now further away from its own release than it is the release of the original Star Wars movies, which is in itself mind-boggling. So, we're well on our way. We're also going to be reviewing other movies that's here in the next month. We will have a special guest, Mike Bedard, and he will be doing Pearl and The Descent with us. That'll be later this month or next month. And then we do have an old friend of the podcast coming back to do an all D&D episode. That'll be Captain Salty Dog.
Oh, nice.
And we'll be doing Dungeons and Dragons, Honor of the Thieves, Among Thieves. And then I'm thinking we might have to do the Jeremy Irons one just to put those next to each other.
Oh,
Balance it out.
I think the scales will be tipped one direction pretty hard, but it'll be interesting to see. The
for sure. I've
attempts.
seen that one.
Oh, yeah,
I've seen that one. It's
rough.
definitely going to be like flipped. I'm
Right.
definitely,
Uh,
and I'm not even a huge D&D fan. I'm just talking about from a movie perspective. Okay.
Yeah.
Jeez.
We do have an announcement from BlackGirlMarvel about our socials.
Yeah, but first and foremost, let's say a good happy birthday or happy belated birthday to MrSniDBitS. His birthday was yesterday.
Yeah, I'm a Star Wars
Literally on the 4th.
Yeah.
Star Wars
Wars
Day
child.
birthday.
So crazy.
Yeah.
Star Wars child.
Hey, I came before
Yeah,
Star Wars
Star
Day
Wars
though.
child. I
So
love it.
like Star Wars Day didn't become a thing until the 90s.
Yeah,
So
True, but no offense. Like your birthday.
I know it goes back now. So
Sorry,
all
unfortunately.
May 4th are Star Wars
Yeah,
Day.
that's what I'm saying.
Even in retrospect.
So I just want to say happy birthday to MrSniDBitS. But to all that are watching, listening, all that jazz, make sure you give us 5 stars on any podcast app that you're on, or whatever stars you see fit. If you think it's 2, put 2 and then tell us why, and maybe we can correct some stuff and figure out some stuff for you. Make sure you have those comments. Do that as well on YouTube. That helps the algorithm. Make sure you follow us on all social media. We are on the Twitters, we are on the Instagrams, we are on the tickety talks for as long as they are going to be tickety talking.
We're going to be on the new Tickety Talkie when that becomes a thing. So just look for us there too. So
Yes, we will. So just look for us there. Make sure you just follow us on our socials so you know what's going on when it's happening, all that jazz. And as usual, you come join our Discord. You can add in a movie you want us to react to, a TV show or something like that. Maybe suggest some things for the pod that you might want to see. We can veto anything, but we do love your suggestions. And as always, make sure you just follow us separately on all our social medias as well. They're somewhere in some link below is somewhere you can find it. Back to you, MrSniDBitS.
thank you, Lala. I appreciate that. You mentioned All That Jazz, which is weird because that's a movie from the 70s.
Sure is.
And it's
Solid
actually
film.
strange because
Still not seen it. Nice.
I've met one of the actresses and actually ate dinner at her home with my parents, which was really interesting. And that's Anne Reinking. She used to live near
so
us
cool.
in California, and my mom happened to know her, and boom. That's like my closest encounter with a
Isn't that
celebrity
just
ever.
the way?
It's weird, right?
I feel like in California, you're if you live there, somebody that's famous. You just don't know that you know them.
There's like a degree of
somebody.
separation to everybody, right?
Yeah, or even or a couple of degrees,
Sure.
98 maybe. I don't know. But
We're all about 1 degree away from Kevin Smith because we all know, and
Tyler gets me
Will
so
Wilkins is one of the tech guys for him. So like, it's weird to be 1 degree of separation from somebody and then never ever meet them. So it's like it's interesting.
We will though.
I'm
see
hoping,
it already in the
I keep hoping that Kevin will see
Kevin
us.
Smith will be a visitor on our podcast. Like I feel it in my spirit.
That would make it for
be.
me if that happened. I would be happy enough right there.
He will be.
Anyway, so we did watch some things, some TV shows, some movies over this last week. I know that All the Movie Things watched another movie, which is never surprising because he, I think, watches so many more movies than most anybody I know.
It's in the name.
It is. I think you bank 1 to 3 a week. It seems like roughly
on average, yeah. And it's been a while too since I've actually like let myself, because like April for me was gone on a blink, and I had I was just like literally working for like 3 weeks straight, even weekends, and then I took a trip, and then and
how are you still alive, man?
I thought I was gonna get sick, like because it was very stressful, the work and the deadline, and usually what happens, and it's usually always like butted up against a trip, some travel, and then I get sick as soon as I come back, and my body's like, okay, we got you through it, now you're gonna be sick. Getting through, totally healthy, so I was really grateful for that. But
and then going to the movies isn't fun sick, so you wait. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was like kind of making up for it though. I was like, I went and saw episode 1, in theaters, which is the first time I saw it was 25 years ago.
But that was dope.
Yeah, it was great. Like we'll of course get into it, but I really wanted to see Fall Guy. I've been looking forward to Fall Guy for a while.
Yeah,
and we know why, right? We know why.
Yeah, exactly.
It's Emily Blunt's in
it,
so.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that too. Yes, Emily Blunt. But I like watched the TV show when I was a kid.
Me too.
And I had the toy Fall Guy truck and everything. So it was cool to see like that truck.
Oh, so you're just a fan.
Yeah, like I grew up.
Oh no, that's a dope. Do you know the premise of the movie or the show, Lala?
I know of the movie. Yeah.
Okay. So the show is a little different. It's like he's basically like a bounty hunter when he's not doing his stunt man stuff. So like when he's like off, but he utilizes all his like stuntman skills and stuff to do the bounty hunting thing. Right. So it's kind of this funny thing where he's like catching, bad guys or whatnot, but he's like doing stuntman stuff. And then he also sings the theme song. The actor Lee Majors, who plays Cole.
Oh, shout out to Lee Majors.
Yeah.
Lee Majors did everything.
Oh, yeah. No, totally. He like sang a theme song. He was like, he probably even did his own stunts back then. Who knows? But
he saved Santa Claus. We all know that. Like that's a fact.
And
Lee Majors, that boy. Ooh,
and so and the thing too was like he's also the $6 Million Man. So there's a funny little Easter egg in the Fall Guy. They play there's a sound effect that they play when he does his $6 Million Man's
the jump
stuff. Yeah, so that sound they play it in the Fall Guy.
That's awesome.
Like, oh, it's another little Easter egg. Yeah,
it's a great noise.
So that was pretty funny. But the movie, it's getting kind of like pandered because of like the plot, and I'll give you like that. Some of it's like, but the thing is, man, it's to me, it was like the quintessential summer movie. Like it's it's funny. It's like. You want an action movie? This is an action movie. Like this is just jam-packed with stuff. And Ryan Gosling's charm is like undeniable. Like you can't, he's like a snake charmer. He like gets you in with that charm, and his comedic timing is so great. And of course Emily Blunt, the Emily Bluntness of it all. But they're great together. She's so
that was
good.
Great.
Yeah. She's very charming herself. And I just had a blast with it, man. This is so fun. Like I was laughing out loud. Just really and the thing is too, it's very tongue-in-cheek. Like it's kind of self-aware. Like there's even some references to like the third act kind of falling apart, and then this film kind of does do that. It gets really kind of convoluted, and everything. But the thing is,
it's feeling kind of meta. I like that.
Exactly. It's fun. It's like, go into it just ready to have a good time, and like don't get too caught up in like the minutia of it, because really it's not what it's for. So, but it is a real great ode to. There's one great moment in it too where they ask him like, "Oh, is that about do some actors get Oscars for that kind of thing?" And they like take them like a deliberate moment to be like, "No." And then they just like hold on him saying that, you know, and they don't cut away for a little bit and let that sink in, and then they move on. Like, yeah, it was pretty funny. I was like, they're gonna like this is a thing, and but yeah, some of the stuff in it is like I don't know, it's insane. You got to see it. It's fun. Especially in the theater, you got to see it in the theater.
I've been enjoying seeing the marketing for it because they've been having the stunt guys out there on the red carpet and like doing some fun stuff for it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think that's why I was kind of disappointed that like it looked like it's not performing super well, because I was like they had to have spent so much money on the marketing.
Oh my god, yeah, no, totally, yeah, because it's like everywhere.
Well, yeah, breakaway walls are not cheap to put in on the red carpet. So.
And the stunt people you got to pay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I think it was the same stunt people. So.
And this isn't really an Easter egg, but during the credits they play the original theme song.
Heck yeah!
So I was like, you know.
So did you enjoy the A-Team when they remade that into a movie?
I did. Yeah.
So would you say this is like on par with that?
Yeah, I would say it's better than the A-Team.
Nice,
for sure.
Because I enjoyed A-Team quite a bit. Like flying a tank wins for me. So
yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, that's insane. I mean, yeah. So yeah, it's David Leitch too, former stuntman.
Nice.
You know, now turned director. So he I think there's a thing about like stuntmen becoming directors. It's because there's a few of them. I also think the director of the John Wick films was a prior stuntman, and then also the director of oh dang it, I'm gonna forget the name. The action films with Chris Hemsworth that were on Netflix.
Extraction.
Yeah, the Extraction films was for the MCU too. He was I think still is a stunt coordinator. But the way they direct action is they just know action. They know that world. They know how to like incorporate crazy camera work and everything into these action. And like the Fall Guy is like no different, you know. So that it really is an asset to the filmmaking part. Yeah,
even more now because of your reviews.
So. Oh yeah, no, I had a blast. Yeah, so
pretty much if Ryan Gosling's in something, I'm gonna be like, let me check that out. This guy knows what he's doing. So Tyler, you said you didn't watch anything this week other than episode 1, or did you even take down episode 1? It might be one you've seen 1,000 times and don't need.
I've seen it 1,000 times as a kid. I think Law mentioned it. I think I kind of just looked at a bunch of reviews and watched a bunch of people reacting to the movie and seeing, kind of just like reminding myself like the things in it, and I feel a certain way about it, but we'll get into it. I don't know.
right. How about you, Law? Did you watch anything?
No.
Okay, no worries. But we will get into episode 1. I did finish the Fallout series, which I have to say is the best adaptation of a video game to film ever made. Yeah. And it's it's so good you can just go play the games and you know that this is part of the same world.
I felt the same way. Yeah,
it's pretty great. I've kind of gone on a Fallout binge this last little while.
Nice.
To maybe not a bad degree, but to a ridiculous degree. So, but my wife is encouraging it. She's like, no, love Fallout. Play more of it. So we'll see when she gets.
I think 4 is pretty good. I think it got panned a lot for some reason.
Well, it's because it's Sims Fallout. It's not like regular Fallout. They actually added all the building and.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it is like robust.
I only played 3.
You gotta like look at I need electricity for different things because you can put in light systems and. You can actually put up like beacons to call new people to your like establishment, and you have to like set up little pockets to try to repopulate the world. It's pretty cool.
I'm tired just hearing that. It's too much.
They found new ways to make you take your life. Like they're like Skyrim, Fallout 4.
Yeah,
right.
Well, that's so on Westworld. Can they bring back Westworld?
And that's kind of the way with the Fallout games too. They've all kind of been different. Like especially when it first started, it was like wildly different than like Fallout 3.
No, yeah, it's a top-down like role-playing game. So,
yeah.
Very different. No, but Fallout 3 did for the Fallout series what kind of Call of Duty 4 did for the Call of Duty series, where it modernized it and changed it and made it better. They did it with Resident Evil. I hated it, but that's just me. It was not a video game show. But anyway, I do check out the Fallout series, even if you just want a fun post-apocalyptic series. You've never played the games. Solid show on its own. Does not need the games. So
I think that's a good point, because like I don't think you need to have that reference of the games to like enjoy the show. Like
in fact, if you go to the games, you might then go, oh, neat, because like it is literally the same. Every aesthetic in the show, the way they have the suits, the animals, the critters, like everything is authentic. Which
even like the gore.
Yes, even the like over the top.
Yeah.
I would say even the like med pack stuff. Like if you like get hurt, you can just stick yourself with a med pack and you're fine, even in the show, which I think is,
like,
is
totally
fantastic. So
I think it has one of the best like openings for like a TV series.
Oh, that is that opening is a wreck you moment. Like I was tearing up. But I think that has a lot more to do with where we are in the world today than it does the show itself. Because like, if it was like 95, I would have been like, oh, that's kind of a cool intro. Well, now I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's thanks for the realistic look at it, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. So we have one movie. It is the very first film in the Star Wars saga. That's a strange statement because it's really not, but it is. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, released in 1999, making it 25 years old. This was probably the most anticipated film in film history.
Oh my God. That was crazy.
Yeah.
You were like camping and stuff for this movie, right? Like
for like
a
while.
Yeah, remember that. It was insane. Like,
That's one of my new world of Star Wars. Anyway, you were gonna say?
Oh yeah, there's so much historically, like from a film history perspective, a filmmaking perspective, but also just history of like the Star Wars franchise itself. Like I feel like that's one of the things that's kind of missing today is like they waited so long between Jedi and then this one. There's just crazy anticipation, and like the hype was insane and undeniable. Like it was just so, I mean, it was insane. And now we're getting like, not that I'm not a fan of I love seeing new Star Wars properties, you know what I mean? But there is like this, like not as much anticipation, like that there was back then. But
I would say that's true.
I feel like it's the same when you oversaturate the market.
Right.
But it's like when you oversaturate the market with something and you don't give it room to breathe and like room for people to miss it, you get tired of it. Marvel was great.
Cranking it out.
Marvel was great when they was like a few years in between what they do, but then when they started like overlapping and all that kind of stuff, people were just like, "Yo,
3 a year, 2 TV shows, new TV shows coming."
It was a lot. It was
interesting. Hype for it was like The Force Awakens. I think was the last time I was like really hyped for Star Wars.
Because it had still been a while.
Because it was
there was a chunk.
Right, it was a decent chunk in between, and then it's like they switched it up just in a way that you were like, okay, female lead, okay, that's interesting. Does it tie into the rest of the canon? Like it was. I love her. You know what I'm saying? When we see any past characters, like it had that like anticipation.
It did.
So like. What's that was
really interesting about Episode 1 in the sense of its release is Lucas is by far and away a marketing genius. Like the guy knows how to market his shit to a ridiculous degree. So that's why you get the special editions in 96, because he's putting it out for the palette, letting everybody see it on the big screen again so that they're ready 3 years later.
Getting primed.
Right. And so he used exactly what you were talking about, but in reverse, where he like put it out 3 years ahead of time and then let 3 years pass and then announced it. I remember it was December, because back then trailers weren't anticipated the way they are now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was working at the movie theater when those were released, and even then there were still like people lining up for those too, for special editions.
No, I went to. I don't remember what movie it was, but I went to see a movie because I knew it had the Star Wars trailer attached to it. I don't think I even cared about the movie.
You were doing that,
and it was one of those things where even when the trailers came on, everybody was like, "Shh, shh, shh." We don't want to miss a moment of the trailer. And the Episode 1 trailer was epic. Like it was.
Yeah. No, it was.
Yeah. Now I can tear it apart and go, oh, that's the scene. That's
Right.
Yeah. So you guys, so who saw it in the theater? Just you, Brian, or did you go see it, Tyler?
No, I didn't get to see
Okay.
it.
I was like 19
Mickey
years
saw
old.
it.
Yeah.
So
I was 19 when it came out. So
nice.
yeah, I remember.
But you saw it last night in theater.
I saw it. Was it last night?
Or was it Friday night?
It was Friday night. Yeah.
And was it in IMAX or was it just in theaters again?
No, it was just regular.
Okay.
Yeah, regular theater. But there's a few of us in there. But yeah, every time, man, that doesn't matter like how I feel about the film. Every time that like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away comes up, and then boom, like I'm like a kid again, you know, just like it's just so good. I mean, and this time, like, I've had an interesting relationship with the prequel trilogy. I'll admit I was one of the kind of like haters of the prequel trilogy, but that I'm glad to, you know, like, yeah, it was hard. I mean, I was born on the day Empire Strikes Back was released. You know, I was like, I have like all these Star Wars connections. Grew up with the original trilogy, kind of literally. I had Star Wars underoos, you know, like all these things.
What underoos didn't you have, man? You had so many underoos growing up.
Superman, I had Batman.
But that was like if you went to buy kids stuff, the ruse, like that was it. You had like logo stuff, and that was
a matched pair of things. Like
I had plain old underwear growing up. I ain't had no special. I know, right?
Yeah.
That's why I buy like pajamas that got like Powerpuff Girls and stuff on it, because I'm like,
you got to make up for it. No, that makes sense.
You gotta make it up for it, man.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
But yeah, so I was like, kind of like, even though I did enjoy it when I first watched it. I remember liking it, but then as time went on, too, like Clone Wars, and then, you know, Episode 3, it's like, oh, I was like not digging what they did. But like as time has gone on, though, I've like grown to appreciate these films so much more, especially seeing like how, because it is a very generational thing, you know, like Sniddy and I, the original trilogy is kind of our generation, but then like I really love seeing this generation who grew up with this prequel trilogy, just how much they love it. It's like, oh yeah, duh, that makes sense. This is how I was with the original one, you know, like and seeing like people like almost like publicly apologize to like Hayden Christensen and the actor that
and Ahmed Best.
It took too long.
Yeah,
it took too long though.
No,
it
totally.
took too long.
And it's made
but
me
I'm
love
happy
these
they got
films
it
more,
though.
You know what I mean? Like it's like, man, so
what's interesting about that you mentioned, because there was this like, it's, you know, people were like, oh, this is so lame, it's for kids, and I'm like, you don't think the original trilogy was for kids?
Right.
Like that's literally Lucas came out and was like, oh, I made a movie for kids, and everybody was like, it's all right, George, release it anyway, it'll do well. And of course, you know, we know what it did. But what's hilarious,
it had robots in space. It had a love triangle for girls.
But you know, think about
a weird triangle, but still a triangle. Magic.
Right. The way that people took C-3PO in the original, there were so many people who were like, that guy's so annoying. He won't shut up. I hate him. And then we get to Jar Jar and people say the same thing. I'm like, you realize that's Star Wars, right? Like this is like
3PO.
You've got to have the fool character in Star Wars.
Exactly.
Like it's got to be there, and that's Jar Jar.
That's the thing. Lucas kind of understood was like these like very traditional storytelling, you know, hero's journey, type storytelling, basically, and that's what he's doing. You know what I mean? And it's like and it all like essentially works. You know what I mean? Like.
It's got a nice skin on it, basically. That same,
it does,
you know, that's what we like about it.
And I think Star Wars is an interesting one because, I mean, you get so many. Like, I don't claim to be like the most like hardcore Star Wars fan. Like, I don't know deep lore. I've never read any of the books really, besides the one that's between
Shadows of the Empire.
Shadows of the Empire, yeah, and I even played that game, the video game that was on like N64 or whatever. Like that was it was pretty sweet. Yeah, but that was the only really book I read. But I was never like super into the lore, you know, like the deep lore. Like I don't know, like I didn't know some of these other characters until like later on. You know what I mean? That were in it. But I
was trying to explain to my wife about the guy that gets his arm cut off in the cantina scene, and I'm like, oh yeah, you know when Ponda Baba gets his arm cut, and my wife was like, what?
Yeah, like
she hates me because when it comes to the original trilogy, like, yeah, like I know planets and like
even then I still don't know like all the
no, I got
those characters.
I got like really into it.
Mos Eisley.
Mos Espa.
I
Okay,
will
so
say, too, like as far as like watching it in the theater again, it's still like it's just so I don't know. It is kind of like magical, you know. Like Ben Burt is a freaking genius, like the sound designer and sound like the pod racing sequence still slaps. I mean, it's pretty great. Like it's insane.
Agreed.
I mean, I think I appreciate it so much more now too, but like it's got like humor just in that sequence alone. The sound design is like amazing. Like those pods are so
Sebulba's pod racer is beautiful.
Oh my god. Like just like and there's like funny moments. Like I laugh every time like when the pods race by and then the two like Jawas are there, like like when like I love it.
Or they're like Tusken Raiders taking pop shots at racers
just like
and
taking
stuff.
like what the heck is going on? Just a wild race. Like it's so watching it in the theater again really like brings out those things a little more. But
I never thought I would enjoy chariot racing in a Western, but you know.
Right. That's exactly what it is.
There it is. There it is. High speed chariot racing.
Yeah.
So how old were you guys when episode 1 came out, and what were your initial thoughts? Let's start with Law.
You said it came out 25 years ago?
99. Yeah. So you're like 12? 12 or 13?
I don't know math.
86 to 99 is 13. So I'm pretty sure you were.
I don't know math.
I was 5.
You were 5. Okay, but did you still go see it in theaters?
Mom had to take me to the theater.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember the experience?
It was great.
I was 12.
So Tyler, do you remember the experience when you were 5 at all?
13, I think.
Oh, not really. No, I just remember we watched it a lot. Like it was Phantom Menace. I think Revenge of the Sith we watched like the most. Like, and we would like be in the backyard with broomsticks and like trying to recreate scenes.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
that's awesome. So, Law, did you see it in theater? Then you would have been 12. So that's like you were the prime age for it.
Yeah. I honestly don't remember. I just know that this film has been a part of my life. Like I don't
right. Like I can't
remember because my family, like I was the sci-fi person in my family. Like my family was like, you know, action and like, you know, like people in their films, you know, type of thing. And I was the kid that was like, oh, like E.T. and like wizards and witches and things. Like nobody else in my family is like that. But I just remember, I remember people like hating this movie a lot and me not understanding why. And then I remember seeing it and like, I don't know. I don't know. I thought it was great. Like I didn't grow up with the original trilogy, but I've seen the original trilogy because like my aunt had like a VHS or something like that. So like I grew up with it, but I didn't grow up with it. You know what I mean? So for me, the prequels were like my introduction kind of like into this world. So I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Like you had a young girl and I was obsessed with Natalie Portman back then. So you couldn't tell me this movie wasn't amazing the moment I saw her on screen. Okay. Because I love you some Natalie Portman. But I was always like, I always like proud of myself that I always caught that she had a double.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, I caught that she had a double. Like that's one of the one of my like core memories. If we're gonna pull out something, it's like I knew that I was like, that's not her. I was like, she behind her. It's like, why is she behind her?
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought this film was great. I thought it was like it's bright and it's lively. It's such a different feel from like the original trilogy, where the original trilogy is kind of like dark and dank, and I mean that in a really good way.
Well, you're following the rebels. Their
like,
gear's going to be dirtier and old, and
oh, for sure. But also, I feel like the tone is dark and dank. So like the colors are darker, things are a little bit more washed out. Things are, Whereas in this one, because we haven't experienced any of that yet, everything's brighter. Like the sand looks like newer. Like, you know what I mean? Like everything just looks like
well, even like that
happy.
big battle scene on Naboo was like so like there are these gorgeous field of green hills. You know, the sky is so vibrant and blue. Like, and then there's like this battle going on.
It hasn't been touched. It hasn't been touched by like this war yet, right?
Empire's
So like
kind of
the fact that they were able to like convey that in this film like very, very well to show you that this is a different world. Like, yes, you have some similar characters by name, but this is a very different time, a very different world than what we eventually see, which I think is just great, like visual storytelling. Like, you didn't have to tell me that things were better. Things were a little bit better. It was gonna shit was gonna hit the fan for sure. But
and you
just
showed us
see
that
it was better
throughout this trilogy. You know, you kind of see it.
Things do get darker.
Transition.
You see how it gets to A New Hope. You know what I mean? Like, you see, like it was a world with hope that lost hope, and then it's like a new hope.
They got a new hope, right? Ben actually mentions how bright and beautiful it was before the darkness, before the Empire.
So I like love that bit of storytelling. I think being older now, kind of like doing my little recap, I'm seeing it with like just adult eyes, like fresher eyes, more like wiser eyes, I guess I'll say, because I didn't know what I know now about film back then. So like looking at it now, I can like appreciate it way more. I appreciate Jake Lloyd way more than I did when I was a kid. But I was a kid, so I didn't, you know what I mean. So, but I appreciate him way more. The acting that he was doing in this film as a young man, like, was just so amazing. Like he acted like a very like adult kid, so that when he becomes like Hayden Christensen's character, you can see like where that arrogance kind of like stems from, it comes from, and like why he's a little smoother and things like that. Like, I don't know,
he does everything he says he's gonna do. And more.
He does. And it's like, it is. And I felt like it's intriguing to like go backwards. Sometimes when you go backwards and stuff, because you know how it ends, they kind of mess it up and get muddied. And you're like, y'all could have saved me the grief of this. But it's like going back and seeing what a hopeful kid Anakin was, like the love he had, even though it was just him and his mom. And that stuff was like, it kind of hit me harder this time, because you see like who he becomes and eventually who he reverts back to in this one person, right? It's like, it's very weird. You can see the arrogance in him as a little kid. You can see that he's like, oh, I can fix that. Oh, I can do, like, what do you mean? Like,
the way he treats C-3PO is
like
of
he's
him being
just
kind of arrogant.
Right. And it's like, you see all of the makings, but then you see what he comes. I don't know. It's just really good storytelling, really good acting, really good like casting and things like that. And I always think the world, like, no matter what trilogy we're in, the world is beautiful. like, it's just a beautiful world. And I think it held up like 25 years. Like, I think the graphics held up really good. I think everything looked really nice. And I know they like remaster stuff and all that kind of stuff, but I still feel like it looks like
Well, and they did remaster this movie because Yoda was originally a puppet in this film, and they changed the weird cross-eyed puppet out for
he was digital. He looked so different. I was like,
they did not remake him well enough to make him look like Yoda, unless Yoda had put on like 40 pounds, you know, had eye surgery, you know, all those.
He wasn't training nobody during that time. He was a little cataract.
Well, the thing was, so they could have just used, they probably could have totally just used the original, you know, Yoda puppet, because he wouldn't, his like age difference wouldn't have been that great.
No, the problem is, the reason they didn't is it actually disencrated because it was made of silicon, so it actually it had died. Like it would look like a gremlin that had melted. So they couldn't do it. They had to rebuild it.
The horror version of Star Wars,
right?
Eat
your brains, I will. You know?
So like,
I'm here.
To piggyback off what Lala was talking about was like, I think a lot of that too, like, things holding up was like a lot of stuff was done digitally for this, and this was like one of the first, if not the first film to use digital cameras, digital cinema cameras.
I think it was the first. He was pushing for it.
They used like the Sony Genesis
that's cool.
cameras, I think was what it was like, and they're like massive back then too. Like these digital cameras are huge.
Well, you had to have a sensor that was worth having, like
and that was like a big push from Lucas himself. He like really wanted to use digital for this, and I think that's one of the reasons too, like it kind of holds up and why it's so vibrant and, you know, that they're able to like alter things as much as
just the
possible with more computers.
Sounds of the sabers, sounds of them clashing, the sounds of like the pods, everything is just like clean, crisp. Even when they're like talking, when it's like loud things happening in the background, it's just, I don't know, it's just a great experience to watch, I guess I could say.
Tyler, what do you think of episode 1?
It's fine.
And that's our show.
Yeah. That's the end of the podcast. Join us next time. I don't like I said, I think like I said earlier, it's like it's crazy like thinking back on it now, like watching it as a 5-year-old. I don't remember a whole lot, but watching it now, I don't know. See, I have like the reverse. I'm almost like more critical on it because of the things that like the movies I've watched and like just looking at Star Wars, like the saga as a whole. The pod racing, like there's a lot of cool and neat stuff I think in the Phantom Menace. But there's a lot of like things where like I don't know if they had enough story to like do this prequel, if that makes sense, because it felt like the pod racing, right? That whole thing is just to tell you that, like, for me, it was just to tell you that Anakin is really good at flying or whatever, you know, like he's a really good pilot. And there's like that's a huge chunk
and engineer. Let's be clear, he built that pod racer, so he did both.
And like I don't know how you guys feel about it. Like that's how I kind of felt like it just felt like a movie just to.
I don't know. I felt like
it justifies him being in the ship later.
I feel like it parallel, right? But I think I just feel like it parallels him and Luke in a way. Like it shows you that like him and Luke are essentially the same person in a sense that they both come from like humble beginnings, have same like planet. This like prophecy over them. You know, and they both are, you know, good flyers and like things. I don't know. I just think it sets up what we've seen. So I think that's why I like it, because it's like Luke had to get it from somebody. Like, you know, so and it kind of just shows you like not only has like Anakin been a prophecy, but Luke has been like a kind of like a prophecy this entire time. Like it shows
this is one of those unfortunate years that the Star Wars was made makes this. There's a scene they could have added to the original Star Wars movie where you have Luke in his T-16 Skyhopper taking down Womp Rats. Right. And they try to show the T-16. They talk about that. Had this movie been made in 99, he would have absolutely put scenes like that in there. Yeah, there would. And then you would have had even more connection to what Law's talking about, where it is obvious, like completely obvious that Luke and Vader are paralleled. But I would argue there's elements of Anakin that he gets from, or that Leia gets from Anakin as well, because she is so
I agree, but I also agree
and hard-headed and has her own path, right?
No, like
she gets them from both her parents, like for that.
But she's just as I feel like she has that arrogance of an Anakin. You know what I'm saying? Like especially in like A New Hope, you can see the arrogance in her, and you're like, oh, you get that from your daddy. Your daddy just is like kind of arrogant. Is that not to say that like Padme isn't, but I also think that it parallels like Padme and Leia parallel in this film too. Like you see her as like you know, she's a queen, princess, you know, like she's an ambassador, like eventually, you know what I mean? It's just I like those, I like seeing those parallels, you know, because it shows that like some stuff is just DNA. You know, not everything's like, you know,
midichlorians. You know. Sorry.
Pardon me, sir. I am so sorry. Go ahead, Ty.
Sorry.
I'm
that was a very controversial thing.
I think it still is.
Like, the midichlorians?
Yeah. Like Lucas kind of like altered the whole.
Well, before it was all living things that bound us together, bound each other together.
More mysterious too, you know, like.
But no, it's this one cellular organism that does it all.
Yeah, so it determines. And then I even think like the sequel trilogy even went a little further too, of like, you know, with I mean, we all know how that turned out.
But here's the thing, I still agree that it still binds everything. Like I feel like it's still in the world, but it's just like the level in which I feel like all living creatures have midichlorians. It's just that the level in which
but if you have 10, you're not tapping into the Force. Like
but that's what I'm saying. Like if it's so I still feel like it still encompasses like all living things, even though he just gave a name to it, like a word to it. You know, that people like flipped out about.
I think the Old Republic would have known. They would have had much more deep science. They would have. We've seen their libraries, so I think they would have had a name for it. By the time Yoda and Obi-Wan tell Luke about it, there's no reason to be like, in our old libraries we had, there would be no reason to go down those details.
No, there wouldn't be.
Right.
So
No.
it's excusable.
Then it's something you can explain, but also I feel like it's something you can explain that they said to him maybe off camera, off screen somewhere. Like everything doesn't have to be like front in your face words to tell you. You know what I mean? Like words, things to say.
So when this movie came out, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think in some ways Lucas was using this as opportunity for like, okay, there's gonna be like a bunch of like, I have old Star Wars fans, but this is also an introduction to a lot of people that have never seen Star Wars. So I think he's using these little moments, because I was paying attention to some stuff. There's a lot more expository things in episode 1 than like a lot of the other films.
Then in the whole trilogy,
like right? Exactly. So he's using these little moments to like explain kind of things. And granted, like they aren't like super expository. There's like that's a little like line of dialogue here that he uses, here and there. So I think that I'm like, I have no idea really. This is just like my, own like head theory that was like, he's probably using these as like a way to retell things for a new generation.
I think that's why I'm trying to be a little bit more like laxed on the prequels, because like there's certain things I don't know, like I constantly when I was watching this, like this is a movie for kids though, right? Like it feels like, but he's also trying to introduce it to like the whole like it just felt like the political drama stuff was like weird. Like as a kid, I'm like, what is happening? What is this embargo? And
I love the political drama. That's actually my favorite part of
it. Way more now, but even when I watched it as a 19-year-old, I was like, what is this political shit?
Get to the fights.
Get to the stuff.
But I've also always been a political liked politics, so for me it wasn't a far stretch to be like, oh, Star Wars politics. Let me dabble a little.
I agree. Growing up watching this, it wasn't until I got a bit older where I started to understand like the levity of that, like how heavy that is.
You don't get.
But as a kid, I was like
you gotta have all that. Like
I was like, who's she talking to? What's going on?
You're like, oh, okay.
Well, he's hatched like 3 schemes, right? So the first scheme is to become chancellor. Second scheme is how do I get control of the powers, and then finally the last scheme is becoming the emperor. So there's some interesting
his side hustle of being, Darth Sidious and like having Darth Maul and doing that whole thing too. It's like he's a busy guy. I mean,
I think he is the Phantom Menace. Like it's him, not Darth Maul, because he's the one that keeps popping up, even as a hologram. Like you never see Sidious in form other than being Palpatine. As fans,
I'm like,
red
guy is the Phantom Menace. That's the
one. As when it first came out, I wasn't sure. Like you gotta watch it.
The devil guy, that guy.
But the whole idea that we didn't know who Palpatine was. Like, sure, new viewers, kids, were going to be like starting this adventure and being like, "Oh, look, Senator Palpatine, what a nice guy. He's a Nabooian. Like, oh, this is great." But we're sitting there going, "I'm like, Palpatine, that's the Emperor." Like, I knew that immediately. Plus, it's the same actor, so I'm like, "What is going on here?" And I got really, like, what are you trying to hide this from me?
But I feel like that's the joy. I feel like that's the joy of not seeing the original trilogy and seeing the original trilogy.
You got to watch it in a very different way, La.
Because if you're a person who didn't see it, you're like, oh, this is interesting. Like, this is like, man, what is this? What is this? And then you go and you watch the original trilogy and you like, I feel like it's the same thing, but in reverse. You know what I mean? It's the same like feeling. It's the same like mind blowing. It's just like in reverse. Like I'm watching it from like chapter 1 as opposed to chapter 4.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Nobody gave me chapter 1, okay? It's not my fault.
Exactly.
I had to guess. We had to like take whatever little pieces and tell me. I'm telling you, man, the pieces we got were like morsels for this. Like it was ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
We were like, oh, Darth Vader died in lava. That's how we know he became Darth Vader. We didn't have a clue like how. Right.
No. Yeah. And also too, like the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin, we didn't really have that. We had this like little fight scene.
I know the master.
But also, but I will say this. I will say this. What the prequels give to like elaborate on like the relationships we see like in the first trilogy. I will say this though, the first trilogy, got straight to the point. You understand me? There was like no filler. There was no words wasted. It got like straight. It got like
4 is but 5 like
because it's kind of like it's kind of like an origin story. 4 is like an origin story in a sense. You gotta explain.
And it's 5 characters you're learning from too.
You know what I'm saying? You learn about all these people, but it still was kind of like straight to the point. Like you automatically knew how like Han felt about Leia, how Leia felt about you automatically knew these things. So it's like when you have to like,
I mean, there was the whole like, brother sister.
We
didn't really know.
Which took us 3 movies to find that one.
Exactly.
It took forever.
3 movies and everyone's like, whoa.
But they didn't know. I'm gonna always fight for that. I'm gonna always.
Have you guys ever seen Fanboys?
Yeah,
I love
they that argument about this it's innate, right? I love their argument about it.
That argument is to me that's like a highlight of that film. Like that's a solid like little argument.
Well, and that movie is literally about this movie, which is
exactly. It's like
I will always die on the hill that like people need to let that go. Like people need to just like breathe and let that go. No, I'm not talking about you in particular. I'm just saying like people need to breathe and let that go because like people get so mad over that, and I'm just like, one. She never liked Luke. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. It was. Like, she never liked bro. It's always been.
It was a ploy. It was a means to an end.
She used Luke to like make.
And he knew it when they all walked into the room too. He's like,
exactly.
Oh. And he got all like butthurt because everybody, even the droid, left. Man, like.
Yeah, it's like, oh.
That's sad.
So it's just one of those things where I was just like, people let that go. Like we knew it was Han and Leia from like jump. Yeah. You know, everything, but can I also say that I feel like no, I think Luke, I feel like Luke kind of knew after like the kiss, because like he knew. I feel like he knew like after the kiss, but we don't really get the feeling that he's like in it until like it's revealed that he has a twin, because he automatically knows it's Leia. Like he like automatically says her name. He takes a beat and then he's like,
I think that's
he knows
Yoda and Obi-Wan giving him that kind of like nudge so he knows. Because Yoda knows in 2, and we find in episode 5, and he says it straight out.
I feel like he says that there's another, but I felt like, but they never say like it's Leia. I felt like because of like his connection to her, because they're like their twin.
She knows too, though.
And then his connection to the connection to the Force. It's like I think he sussed it out off of that. So like I felt like he knew in like even in the past movies, it's just not like felt out until like that last movie.
That was the laid groundwork for the dyad.
Come on, midichlorians.
I would love to. I would love to use episode 1 to rule out a big conspiracy that's always been a problem within the Star Wars universe that I can solve for you right now if you guys are willing. This is a big one. So Obi-Wan, how does Obi-Wan not know R2-D2 when he finds him in episode 4? How does he not know the droid considering the amount of time they spent together?
I thought he was just playing a role. I thought he was so deep undercover that he was trying to like not give
only say what he needed to. Right.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. So here's the other one. If you watch episode 1, when we first meet R2-D2, even though this droid gets blasted, it still serves the point. There's 2 almost identical blue astromech droids.
Yeah,
they
look
like R2-D2.
Yeah, I was like,
and I'm assuming it's a second R2-D2 they just threw in the scene because they needed another droid to fill the spot.
Right, exactly.
But that still creates lore, and that means that there are a ton of astromech droids that are that same blue paint, same line.
I honestly love that though. I honestly love that. But
I just another droid.
I agree, but I agree on that because. Like, I doubt they're all named R2-D2.
No, they wouldn't be. The other one that died would have been like R2-D3 or something.
Or something like that. So I feel like
they all have R2.
Right.
So I feel like
nomenclature. But
I feel like it would make sense for them to have multiples like other ones, but then we get introduced to like our R2. You know, I think that's I remember like when I saw that scene,
all intents and purposes the god of the Star Wars universe, because without him we get no Skywalker saga. It just doesn't happen over and over again too. Like he's always there to save the day.
I love it.
I saw this movie in theaters.
I see that Star Wars is kind of like Avatar: Last Airbender. I just need to get that off my chest before I forget.
I've never seen it, so I couldn't make the comparison.
Or is it the other way around?
Yeah,
well, no. It's the other way around. It's the other way. It's for sure the other way around.
He's like,
but it's like when I was wide up, right? He was like, "Calm down." He's like, Star Wars came first. Shut me all the way down. He was like, or am I going to say it correctly? Because you're not saying it right. Because I was watching it and it just made sense that like this would be like a formula for people to like look at to be like, this is success. This is what success looks like, right? So because think about it, like Padme and Leia is Katara, like the mother figure, like, you know, type of thing. Obviously, Aang is like the chosen one, just like how like Anakin and Luke was. And then you have like, what is it? You have like Han, and you have I guess Jar Jar Binks, stuff like that, who is essentially like the Sokka of in that sense, because like they like, well, they're funny, they're goofy. Like things kind of happen on accident when they do stuff. They don't have any like ability like everybody else. Like somebody has some sort of power and they don't. Like they're like the less powerful one. And then the lead always goes to some type of like isolated area to find like a master and to get trained and stuff like that. So because like it even happened to Korra. Korra went to a swamp and found a trainer, and then like so did like, and then Aang. They found their trainers in different parts of the world. So I just thought it was funny.
I would argue that you're completely right, but it's because George Lucas took the concepts of all of that from Asian cinema and threw it right into Star Wars.
Like there's like I said, like the hero's journey.
Right, Joseph Campbell.
Like, there's a way that there's a way that you go about it.
For like hundreds of years.
Like so long. Yeah. So no, I just find it like, I don't know. I was watching this and I was like, this Avatar, like what? I was just kind of watching it. I was just like, it has those like feel to it, which I enjoy, which to me is like nostalgic in itself. So that's what I just like. I just
you turn around, George Lucas is over your shoulder. He's like, yes, same. It's all this. It's like poetry.
I would freak out, and then I would be like, get me into Hollywood. I need to figure out how to choose.
He never was in Hollywood though. That's the thing. Well, I'm not sure if episodes 1 through 3 are, but 4, 5, and 6 are 100% independent films. Not in distribution, but in production. He forked out the money.
Talks about that, how they're like the most expensive like independent films basically
ever made, because he did not want. There were rules. So at this time, he did not
end somewhere.
No, I know
he has an end somewhere. Get me in there, man. If you over my shoulder,
I'm not saying he doesn't.
He's got his friends. He's got Spielberg, you know, and
all the other major directors.
I'm just saying,
right?
If you over my shoulder, rubbing your palms together, you better put me in something.
And I would argue that Star Wars is better because of all of them, and that Spielberg's movies were better because of all of them, because they were kind of a collaborative team.
Collaboration is always great.
Oh, and the editor, let's not forget, what was her name? Me forgetting it live on this podcast.
Dude, that happens all the time.
Are you talking about Kathleen Kennedy?
Yeah, the editor for A New Hope. Or like
So his wife at the time.
She made Star Wars.
She helped. And the fact that editors create the films we know, like they do. Like you could shoot all the footage you want in the world. If it's not edited well together, the pacing will die. I wanted to bring that up about this movie.
Yeah.
There is a serious like jerk and stop motion pacing that happens in this movie. So when they have things happen, especially in the very beginning, we get to the ship and all of a sudden they're attacked and they have to fight. I accept that would happen kind of fast, but once they get down to the planet, it's just like quick, you know, next thing's happening, and so fast that between the beginning of the film and when we finally meet Queen Amidala is like 10 minutes of film, but like 30 minutes worth of material that they could have covered. And I feel this happens once they get to the Tatooine, it slows down again. It becomes kind of normal paced. But then once they're going to Coruscant, it's like, here's a Senate scene. Here's a Jedi scene. Okay, now you guys have to get going again. And you go back to Naboo. And it's disjointed in ways for me. And I think it's always been that way. I did see this movie like 9 times in the theater because I was obsessed with Star Wars at the time. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to go back and see it until I just know this film as well as I know the other ones. And then it got to the point where I was just like, okay, I'll go back so I can watch the pod racing scene again, because that was the only thing that kind of fulfilled anything for me, which was the excitement.
Did anyone else like remember this movie out of order? Because I kind of forgot about like the whole underwater, like where things were happening. Like as I was watching, this, like, oh yeah, this happens before the whole like pod race. For some reason, my mind was like, oh, the pod racing was like for closer to the beginning for some reason.
Right.
But then that's more like the ending of the movie. And in my head, I'm like, well, maybe because like I really like the pod racing and I didn't really enjoy the other stuff.
No, that would make sense. Yeah. Because you're like a kid and you're like, that's like the best part to you. So you wouldn't really remember like much else.
Well, that and the battle scene at the end, of course.
Being as emotional. Right. I didn't remember this film being as emotional as it was for me. And it was pretty emotional. Like Anakin leaving his mom, and then all of them being like, oh, but you fear, losing your mom. And it was like, but obviously it was a fear that came true because he could see the future, right? So it's like one of those things where it's like, I don't know, it's just how different would his life have been if his mom was able to come with him, and or if like what's his name?
Or if he had just stayed.
Qui-Gon, yeah, or if we just stayed.
Qui-Gon, if he would have like,
he would have never been a Jedi.
He might have become a rogue Jedi, though.
None of these things. I don't know.
If he had ever gotten his hands on a lightsaber, like, we don't know what he would have done. He could have become a bounty hunter.
No.
Like, it could have become bad, like, in another way.
I feel like his power wouldn't have progressed if he wasn't trained for it to progress. I feel like it would have just stayed at him, maybe having, like, a little precognition. Maybe
I don't know.
Bit,
his midichlorian count, I think that he was, like, just tapped in at all times. I don't know, saying that to be
think about it, though. No, for sure. But I'm just saying, though, like, let's, like, think about it, though, because, like, if you go to The Force Awakens, right, like, Rey had just, I don't know how many midichlorians she got, but obviously she got to have something close to Anakin's or more, however you want to, like, slice it. But, like, her powers didn't really kick in until she was, like, around, like, Jedis, or at least, like,
I think hers was a necessity. I think it was a forced necessity on her. That's my opinion.
But so was Anakin, though. Like, Anakin was just
true.
Anakin was just created. You know what I'm saying? He was a like a reason. Like, he was born for like a reason for that too. So like, I just feel like without training, because you even see, like, what's it say? You even see Luke, who hadn't trained in a while, how like different his power laid out to be. Like, that it took
we
everything.
We never get to see Luke at his peak, which is so frustrating. Like,
we never do.
That dude would F people up. Like,
I would love to see that. I would love to see.
I mean, and we kind of got to see it in Mandalorian,
right?
Oh yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Pretty sweet.
But the whole extended universe that extended before Disney, I read a ton of those books, and that Luke is a phenomenal pilot. Like, they actually, like, you can get into the psyche of Luke when he's flying the X-wing, which is really bizarre. It's very almost psychedelic, where he's able to just like go zen and then like comes awake and all the TIE fighters are gone. Like, it's bizarre how insanely powerful he gets. Those stories were great. In a sense, like, it was wild. Like,
the Moon Knight situation, he just like
there was
out. Like, oh, everybody's dead.
In these books, and this is a spoiler if you've never read the extended universe Star Wars, but one of the stories, he actually wrecks his X-wing out in the middle of nowhere in space and can't, like, it doesn't go fly anymore, so he's kind of stuck, very Tony Stark, if you will. And
like,
he's
like floating in space.
No, the space. So his capsule's still intact. The X-wing's still intact as far as the fuselage, but the wings aren't working. The engines are busted. He's got no astronauts
inside the X-wing, though,
right? But stuck. Like, and so he just puts himself into like a force coma, basically, until they're able to find him. And you basically just slow your heart rate down to nothing. Like, the books really got wild with the force. So
my question is that what Leia did?
I know exactly.
Yes, Last Jedi.
Exactly what I thought too. It was like,
and everybody was crying about it.
Right,
how
exactly.
Dare she
lost her mind.
Touched the force.
She was as powerful in the force as anybody else, but again, she was never trained until Luke trained her years after Return of the Jedi. So,
but that's what I'm saying, right? Her abilities didn't go anywhere.
I think had she ever been like put in a position where she like physically, I think she could have like reacted. But
I think but see, that's different. But to me, that's different. I feel like even if Anakin was a kid and something like that, fear, like that response kind of takes over. But I still think, like, as he got older, he wouldn't.
I think if Anakin stays on Tatooine, it becomes a horror movie, and you see Watto splattered across the freaking side of that building. Like, that's what I think ultimately happened. Because you're talking about Darth Vader.
I do not believe
same power set, just unexperienced yet, so like he'll experience it by killing people.
But
like,
I don't believe it though, because like I feel like
was that
in his whole life, women have been his anchor.
Palpatine gave him a lot more. I won't deny that.
Right. Like as far
That
as the
was
dark
influence like
like
he
it
didn't
wasn't.
have. Yeah.
But I think on Tatooine he would have gotten a dark influence. He would have met a Star Pilot was a piece of shit, or he would have like there would have been
Right.
some piece of
I mean,
shit
the
that would
Hutt
have
still
like
controlled
right.
everything.
Somebody
I
would have
don't
taken
know.
the
He
father
kept
figure for
his-
him, and it wouldn't have been good. Like
Right.
He kept his
yeah, I can
like
see
I
that.
don't know. He kept his he kept that like smart youthful innocence. Like I felt like his mother grounded him, and I felt like losing her shook him up, but then Padme grounded him, but then losing her like it
Shook
was
him up.
over. So I felt like
Yeah.
if he had that, if he kept a grounding, I think like he could have learned more. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, if Qui-Gon didn't die, I think he could have put him on a better trajectory.
Yeah,
No
but
offense,
because it's a
than Obi-Wan
prequel,
did, 'cause I
Qui-Gon
still feel
had
like
to die
Obi-Wan at that
because he was
time
never
Right,
still
yeah,
young.
exactly.
Oh, for sure. He had to. But I still feel like if his guidance was there, because look how Obi-Wan turned out, right? And sometimes it's hard for you to be that for another person. And I still feel like Obi-Wan at that time was kind of young, because him and Anakin eventually grew up as like siblings.
Right.
And you can't
Or like
be a
an
sibling
uncle
to somebody you're trying to
kind of
teach,
situation.
that,
Yeah.
or uncle or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Can we
But
talk
I just
about
find it
too,
interesting,
like
yes.
going back to episode 1, that like, you know, it's like it's probably like one of the most epic lightsaber battles in, you know, like when those
Oh, with
doors
Lil
open
Darth
up and that
Maul
music
and
hits, you're
Bum,
just like,
bum.
damn. Yeah. Like, and like the light Qui-Gon's like, we'll handle this. And
Right.
then they're like, we'll take the long way. Yeah, no shit. Like, and then like
No facts, because
that's
I'm going that
one of the-
way. I'm not going straight.
yeah. One of the best things of like I absolutely love about the whole prequel trilogy was like the lightsaber fight sequences are just insane. Like
Oh, they're amazing.
so good.
The
I mean, when
choreography
you-
is like ridiculous.
Yeah,
Like,
and you look and
Yeah.
and like that's one of the things like I like kind of don't like about like the original trilogy. We're just like very like these very
Well,
They would
it
literally
was an
swing their body.
so it was an old man, an inexperienced
I
boy,
know.
and a robot.
Yeah,
Like they couldn't
know.
move around very much. Like it
yeah,
just,
exactly.
you know.
I know, but still, like they
I
just didn't
love
have
it.
that.
I love the defense.
I know. There's actually like
Scary, I
physical
love it.
limitations with the actual like shitty lightsabers they had back then. You know, on set,
Mhm.
like they couldn't really like. Where the new ones, they could actually like
You could
know, move
see
with
the
them and,
light
like,
disappear on the old lightsabers sometimes
Yeah.
because of the
Listen,
angles.
when Obi-Wan was going crazy on Darth Maul,
Yeah.
I was like, he's mad.
Yeah,
I was
like-
he's
Right, he is
angry.
mad. Isn't that funny? He's not supposed to be
Yeah.
mad right then. He's supposed to be
know.
Exactly,
chill.
which is why
You're also not
Anakin
supposed to
was
dismember.
failed.
That's like a no-no.
He failed
Yeah.
Anakin. He failed.
Right.
He failed. That's all.
Well, okay,
And that's
so
why like fast forward to the Obi-Wan series, which I love.
So good.
I mean,
Solid series.
like
yeah.
when he man, it's so heartbreaking. Like when he fights, you know, and like he has like he sees part of his Anakin's face,
Yeah.
you know, in the helmet, and plus Ewan McGregor is just fucking phenomenal. Like
Mhm.
he
Yeah.
just like is in that role so well, and just he's just so good, and it's just so much more heartbreaking because you see this trilogy. You know what I mean? So I think that's like where a lot of props.
You
need
know
to be
what
given
they
to
because he
that
still calls
trilogy.
him master. Like he still reveres him to a point. Like he
Right.
can't let that go. And then obviously you see that he's stuck between two masters because he still calls Palpatine master too. Like it's
Yeah.
one of those. It's just I don't know. It's just I feel like Obi-Wan was written so well for people that love that character, that love Star Wars, that like wanted that in between of like what happened. It's written so beautifully, and it even like calls back to his character in Phantom Menace. You know what I mean? Like when we first see this version of Obi-Wan. So I don't know. They did really good on
I
that.
think it enhances these films, and I think that was a smart
That's what I was
move
gonna say,
on
yeah.
their part.
Yeah.
Because I still
As it
I
should, though.
struggle with these
Yeah.
films just because I just do I don't know. Watching Irvin Kershner direct
just weren't-
Empire and then
they
trying
weren't
to
for
put
you.
these up next to it, it's very difficult.
Right.
And it's not even
That's the
like trying to be
thing.
mean. Like I'm just talking about George Lucas as a director. Like this is
Right.
my biggest thing. I love Jake Lloyd. I love Jar Jar Binks. None of my problems were ever the things that like caused all these problems in the fandom. I've always
Right.
stood up and gone, George Lucas is a shitty director. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no. Yeah, he
a
can't get
great
the
producer.
performances. Exactly. Yeah. He can't get the performances that he needs, you know, or like really that would be the level of like Ewan McGregor in Obi-Wan, even.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No,
Like
for
he's
sure.
he's kind of like
For
just
sure.
okay, that's good enough, kind of.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
One
he's-
take
yeah,
George,
he's
not that he is, but
exactly, he's
Yeah.
not the greatest director. And I think
Yeah.
I agree. Like I think one of the big benefits of the original trilogy was these different directors. You know, like George Lucas stepped away and let these other like very talented people have a different, because he's too connected to it. George Lucas is way too right there in the woods with it, and
yeah, he's more
you
of
need
a
that perspective.
consulting at this point.
Yeah.
Like
Well-
you need him to like make sure you keep the lore intact and like this world building that he's created intact. Like you
that's
need him
Filoni's
for
job
that.
now, though.
Or at
Yeah, I
least
think
or
that's
get.
Filoni,
I mean,
yeah,
no,
he's
for
the-
sure. You get
yeah.
Filoni now, but like I'm just saying, like in the beginning, like when you were like switching stuff up and like you needed that guidance because like you go into this world, it's so elaborate. It's a world that he created. Like you need him for that, but you don't need him to direct, but you need him for that.
I think he's directing the first one. It makes sense. He wrote and directed it.
Yeah, exactly.
Get the ball rolling.
for sure.
And it's a simple
He's set
3
the
acts. Like
foundation.
it's not, it doesn't
Yep.
need to be more. Introducing the characters. He is a good storyteller. I think he knows writing the stories he's written. Star Wars is a really rich and wonderful world. And I think he's a hell of a producer because if you look at what he produces, the Indiana Jones movies when he was producing them were phenomenal.
Yeah, exactly.
Like anything he produced tended to be really good, especially if he let other people work with him. But watching the makings of these 3 films, the amount of control he had on those reins, when Rick McCullum was like, dude, maybe he's like, no, I want you to draw 40 of these creatures for me and I'll come up and pick the one I want. That's how he ran. It was very like old school studio style, like management. And I think that shows in the films, in my opinion. But not to hate on them. I'm trying to be critical with a positive spin because I do love.
But
the
see,
lore.
I want OG viewers to kind of like have that standpoint where it's kind of like, okay, you grew up with these films; these are nostalgic for you. Nobody's saying that these are bad films, like by a long shot, but also you admit that there's some faults in them as well. Like you can still love something and be like, man, the way that these lightsabers clash or a little slow or woo, the actors could have did a little bit more with this, but they just wasn't directed to. Because when you see these people in other roles, you know that they're talented.
Right.
You know that Harrison Ford is talented. You know that Carrie Fisher was talented. You know that Mark Hamill is talented. But it's like
I think Mark Hamill's talented as Luke, like quite literally. There's a lot of nuance there. But
you need to get a lot out of these people, and if you don't have a director that can pull that out, all you kind of get is kind of like a in the acting, but the story is great and the world is amazing, and it's okay to admit that. That doesn't mean it's a bad film though.
No, like, so in Empire Strikes Back, there's a moment when Luke screams no, and it is terrible. Like it is a terrible moment. The sound editing is off. Like it's cheesy. It's kind of ridiculous. It's over the top. But Empire will remain my favorite, even with that flaw.
Like, the way he goes out of the no at the end always cracks me up because he's like, no, that's impossible. It's so good. I saw Mark. Where's that Joker voice during that time?
I
could have said no.
I also think too, George Lucas in episode 4 is a very different George Lucas than we get when he's directing this.
Very true.
You know, this prequel trilogy.
Well, at this point, he's a fat cat.
True.
He's got a lot of money.
Yeah.
He's become world famous.
He has an empire.
Right.
You know,
he does. Yeah, that's the irony.
So,
Is he Palpatine or is he Yoga? Which one?
You know, it's
made that parallel.
Yeah, yogurt.
The Batman,
Yogurt.
the Dark Knight line fits perfectly. You know, you either
exactly.
long enough to become the villain.
Long enough. Yeah.
So nice, very nice. There was another controversy. I know this is kind of a side, but since we're on Star Wars kind of as a whole, when Grogu was unnamed for the first season and a half, 2 seasons of Mandalorian, everybody kept running around calling him Baby Yoda. And it was funny because even Jon Favreau, who's a huge Star Wars fan, came out and was like, no, dude, his name is the child. His name is the child.
Right.
And I was one of those people that I was just like, quit calling him Yoda. That's not his name. Yoda's not a species. You're literally, that'd be like walking up and calling him, he's John McClane.
The general public doesn't know what Yoda's species is. I still don't know what Yoda's
nobody does.
is.
It's never been said.
Yeah, exactly.
It's never been said.
So,
but turn to the director. What is the director saying?
But also, I feel like, how do you know that?
I mean, that episode's called
Grogu might grow into Yoda. People change their names. Obi-Wan,
he might turn into
Kenobi.
He's never going to be Yoda because Yoda's dead. Like Yoda is dead at this point. So
Yeah.
It's post Yoda.
I know.
Maybe he had a little force. Maybe he had a
It's like
little
post
force
Malone,
baby.
but post Yoda. Yoda.
A little force baby came out looking like himself.
No, because that we also know that Grogu couldn't be directly like a descendant of Yoda necessarily because it's 50 years that he, because Grogu's 50 years old when we meet him, and we know that Yoda was quite much deep in the Jedi Temple at that point. So unless he was doing something like super on the side, I don't.
How you know he wasn't out here just dipping them jeans?
Right, Palpatine be doing all these.
I mean, not that the hypocrisy isn't normal. Like hypocrisy is very normal, but I'm just Yoda doesn't feel like that kind of guy. Doesn't feel like the baby mama kind of guy. I don't know.
Back in his youth, though, and he was at war.
His youth would have been when he was 100. Like
species culture.
But that's what I'm saying. You never know.
But Grogu's 50, so like you're talking about 700-year difference. I'm not saying that. I just know that Yaddle was never found to die, so I think that maybe Yaddle.
You feel me? And then somebody found the midichlorians, put them into a little lady.
That's what I'm saying. We need to like a whole farm of Palpatine.
Or into a machine. We are in like the future past. Exactly. I never know where we at.
I would argue, look, they brought Palpatine back.
That's what Star Wars is to me, future past.
They brought Palpatine back, so I think this might.
I'm just saying, man.
Somehow.
Like, right?
Somehow.
How we know Grogu might not just be a clone of Yoda that somebody has like created. Maybe that's why that's the child and chosen and stuff like that.
I can see the steam coming off.
They look different.
And why he has this but that's what clones are. Most
but he's
clones
only 50
are like
years old. Of course he looks different.
Right.
Replica.
I've seen young pictures of Yoda. He didn't look like that.
Oh, you did. Oh, okay. All right. But I'm just saying though, he could be a clone, which is why he has all this knowledge he doesn't understand that he has, like, and plus we still don't know where he got it from. So he could be a clone that they just, the dark side was trying to build their own, like,
I say keep
Yoda
all of those critters a mystery. Don't tell us their species. Don't tell us he's a clone. Just keep him a mystery. Right. I like that a lot more.
I'm cool with that.
When this is totally off the beaten path, but when they made Hannibal Rising and showed me where Hannibal got his chip on his shoulder, it ruined Hannibal for me. I was like, you're telling me this like best serial killer of all time, like the most evil of all serial killers, has a mama's complex? Not that that's out of left field, like it feels right, but I didn't need to know that. Like you could have just not made this movie. So
listen, all my years of watching Criminal Minds lets me know that if your mama do you wrong, you become a psycho. Yeah. Right. You going to become a psycho.
Right.
It's just one of those things. Unless you get help.
Yeah. Do you guys want to rate this? And we do have some time if there's another topic, because I don't think that this is a contentious topic. I think we agree on a lot of these things. Because I know that Law was talking about us talking about debating or discussing Star Wars, but I'm not going to knock on it ever that hard.
Like there's not much of a
There's no clash, right?
I mean,
I know.
Brian kind of had his own debate. He was like, I used to be one of the naysayers. No, I'm not. And he just cleared up his own debates.
That's fair. So let's just talk about the first. Let's rate this and then rate the trilogy of this film. I'd like to know where you guys stand as this compared to its two sequels.
Yeah, there was a lot of rankings that came out too from people I saw, like all over the place. But
right, and that's what I'm curious. I want to see kind of how this plays out. Yeah. So let's go ahead and start with you, Brian. Rate episode 1 and then rate the sequels.
Okay. It's definitely changed. I'm gonna say episode 1 is probably a 7.5 for me. Back then, I was like giving like a 6, a 5, 6. Oh. Like I was like not, you know what I mean? I was like, George Lucas, like how dare you? One of those. But I was like a 19-year-old kid too. I didn't, and I wasn't, super. I wasn't as deep into, like, I still loved movies, you know what I mean, and was still like kind of in the filmmaking, but it's not as deep as I am now. But back then, it was just like some of the movie things. It wasn't
some of the movie things.
Yeah, just some
a few of the movie things.
Yeah, some movie things here and there. But yeah, and like with time to have grown to really appreciate this film and really appreciate the fans of this film that grew up with this film, and how much they love it, and it's hard to deny that, and like what you mentioned too, Sniddy, about like the original trilogy, I can definitely look back on it too and be like, oh yeah, there's a lot of flaws with it, but at the same time, it like without it, we wouldn't have ILM, we wouldn't have Skywalker Sound, we wouldn't have all like the incredible things that so many films use now, so there's that too. But
yeah, no original trilogy, no Terminator 2, like
no Jurassic Park,
right?
Oh,
real quick, so you were going to do the other 2 movies, but I actually watching the animation, the claymation, if you will, or the stop motion in Empire Strikes Back tells me that 13 years later, they probably still could have pulled that off with Jurassic Park, because it would only been like 15% of the film.
They were working on towards that anyway.
Right. And I think that Jurassic Park would have been a hit either way. CG or I think it would have been a big film either way.
Right.
So anyway, what do you...
They were already, because they were already making like the stop motion creatures for
They were
Jurassic
like
Park.
months into that when they decided to switch.
Yeah.
And then, so what do you rate 2 and 3?
The other 2. 2 and episode 2. I haven't seen it in a while, so like right now this is like from the like my it's probably a 6. It's like it's hard to get through. Like I've been trying, like you mentioned earlier too, like wanting to watch episode 2, and I was like actually more inclined to watch episode 3 over episode 2 and just totally skip episode 2.
Just think about 2 as like a flashback sequence.
Exactly. It's like it just like had to happen. Yeah, but there's so many things with it. But there's so many like fun things in it too, especially with Obi-Wan, so there's some fun stuff in there. But and then episode 3, it's probably an 8 for me for episode 3, just because it's so emotional, and like especially with like looking on in retrospect to like with Obi-Wan, the series, and again the fandom that is like kind of like really brought Hayden Christensen back into the fold. Just that whole sequence at the end is just like, it's so emotional, and just like the light. I mean, the lightsaber system is like
that 20 minutes.
It just, oh my god, it just blows my mind. Like they're like sweating, and like I mean they're working their ass off. It's like it's so fast. Like bravo to them, man. Like they did such an incredible job. I mean,
they worked their butts off on that sequence.
Yeah,
for sure. All right, Tyler, what did you think of episode 1, and then give me the other 2 once you're done.
Episode 1, I'm gonna give it a 7 metachlorians, because like
the Force is not with this movie apparently.
7.
I still like there's a lot of things that I liked about it, and like you said, there's a lot of things to respect about it as far as like from a filmmaking standpoint. Like it did like historically establish a lot of things, and I think it does add some sort of level to the the rest of the saga, so I appreciate it for that. Clone Wars will forever be at the bottom of like it's just I don't know. That's the one I recently watched, because it was just like,
oh man,
I just needed to know again. I was like, is it as fast as people were saying? I was like, it's terrible. I was like, what is this? It's just so boring. And then the
floating fruit, the sand, it's coarse. Padme's shirt getting ripped. I'm quite beside myself. I love puns, but holy crap, dude. If you make me groan and not in a good way, sorry.
Right. Yeah. It's
like Natalie Portman looked like she was in pain. Like I felt bad. Like she wanted to
She tried to get out of 3, but they wouldn't let her.
Well, that's a perfect example of like having a good director. It's Natalie Portman. You can't get a performance out of Natalie Portman. Like, come on.
When she's doing well, I'm willing to bet that was probably an AD on set. I'm just putting it
right. Yeah, it's like
sorry, that's terrible. That's mean. Lala. Oh no, wait, I'm sorry.
Like Rick McCallum telling her stuff.
Yeah, 2 and 3. So 3 as well.
Revenge, I'm gonna give like a 9, because like I just everything about that movie, like even if it's like cheesy or like it did
right.
Everything I could forget about the other 2
is pretty great too.
Yeah,
like, man.
Yeah.
How about you, La?
Right.
Love it.
Maybe. Phantom Menace, I give it an 8. I feel like to me, it's very similar to like A New Hope, The Force Awakens. It's the first in the trilogy. Usually the first in the trilogy is always like entertaining and fun to watch and wants you to continue with the next one. And this did that. So I give it an 8. What's 2? Attack of the Clones, I think. Attack of the Clones. I mean...
That was the sound of the trilogy halting. Like,
yeah. Attack of the Clones isn't bad because it gives you the Clone Wars and stuff like that. And I always feel like these films do much better when they bleed into the original trilogy. Like if you can bleed into the original trilogy, like how Obi-Wan bled into, you know, it just adds more weight to it, which is why I think that's why everybody loves Revenge of the Sith, because it's like it's the culmination of like the first trilogies, like all of that tension you see between these characters, them being able to sense each other. You kind of get that culmination in Revenge of the Sith, and then when you go back, you're like, oh my god, like it just adds more weight to those scenes, and I think good prequels do that. So for Attack of the Clones, all this did was set up Anakin essentially as Vader. In a very long way, but it was very bureaucratic, and that's not my jam. It's just not my jam. It has some good fight scenes, and you know, like the dome area thingy and all that kind of stuff when they were all like fighting.
With Mace Windu and all that.
Yeah, with Mace and everything like that. Like and Mace and Yoda, and they all came. You know, they all came and hopped in. Like that's still a great scene. Like the action is still nice, but it was very bureaucratic, and I'm just very like I go to sleep on those.
It was very decapitating.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's go, Mace.
Boom.
I don't know. I gave it a 7. I gave it a 7 because I'm pretty sure I'm gonna watch this again sometime in my life.
8, 7.
8, 7, and Revenge gets a 9. Revenge
8,
gets
7,
a 9.
9.
Revenge
Okay.
Yeah, 8, 7, 9. Revenge is a solid end to this trilogy. You know, like I feel like Revenge has that like Empire Strikes Back, even though I know Empire was in the middle, like, but it still has like that. Oh my,
it's not a happy ending.
Like, right? It's not a happy ending at all.
Yeah.
Like for anybody, like everybody
I
is
think
disappointed.
Governor Tarkin's doing all right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's doing great
for sure.
Speaking of Tarkin, that was all like makeup,
right?
Too, like they had they're to make this guy look like the original actor. You know, it's like
which I'm okay
tough.
with. I like
right?
People,
yeah,
you know, it is tough as fuck. But you know, I'm like, I wish people did that more. I wish they had more like makeup with CG and makeup with like computer stuff, like just because more practical with the computer. But they don't really do that no more. But Revenge was solid. Revenge is one of those ones that I think like people camped out for that one more. They camped out for Phantom Menace.
19 hours.
No, they
I was
camped
in
out.
line for that.
They
movie.
camped out hard for that one because, like, that was like I said, it's the culmination of like.
Oh yeah, you got to see.
You know
that
world to see them, like, to see their. But I'll say throughout this trilogy, to see their bond go from like a I guess we in this together. It's like in the first one because he was just like Yoda. I'll train him. I promised, old dude. Like I'll do it. And then to see their bond kind of grow to this, like, I'll respect you, but also I need to grow up. But I can't let you grow up. But like you still got a lot to learn. No, I don't. Type of thing to kind of like go back around to. I don't know what I want to say, but y'all get what I'm saying. So go ahead. Yeah.
So this is going to probably shock you guys. I think the episode 1 is the best. It goes 3, 2, 1 for me. So it's actually I'm gonna go 7 because I think episode 1 is still watchable. It has its moments. Then I'm gonna go 5 for episode 2. It is painful in a lot of areas. There's moments. Again, it has the lore. Like I love Star Wars, so I'll always watch them to like get the bits and the critters and the all the fun stuff.
When they made for me, when they made the focal Padme and Anakin, I just didn't.
Well, it's I romance, sci-fi, fantasy. That's exactly what I'm in for, right? I didn't
sign up for that. I wouldn't mind like sprinkles of that, but I didn't sign up for that. I kind of signed up for like him and Obi-Wan. Like I'm just saying, like some Mace Windu thrown in there. You know what I mean? But
So I also I 3 is weird because it was actually the movie that was out when I had started the Star Wars fan club in my town, and we were like all adamant and fun. There's a documentary out there if you ever want to watch it about the Star Wars fan club. But yeah, oh yeah, big time nerd. And so I kind of put this film at this like pretty ridiculous level in my mind because I was so like happy with the Star Wars movies then. I was the opposite of Brian. Then I was one of those people who was like, cool, more Star Wars. I was just happy to have more of it. I was just like, give me more. And so I walked into this movie, and it is by far and away the worst acting of the trilogy. Like it is terrible from everyone. There's a moment where Natalie Portman. I feel that way about 2. See, Natalie Portman in 3, there's a moment where they like light her in Coruscant, and she looks like sick, and like the lighting is bad, and the lines are really terrible between her and Anakin. There's the moment where Obi-Wan like, not the younglings, and he like covers his face, and it's just really bad. The reason Anakin kills Padme, like I have a lot of problems with the movie. Yes, the fight scene is great, the special effects are phenomenal, but the film just fell really, really flat for me. So I still to this day give it a 4. I absolutely hate it. I think it's a turd. And that's interesting because I do want to rewatch it with Obi-Wan in mind. Like I want to watch 1. I'm just restarted 2, which I'll drudge through, and then I'm going to watch 3 again, trying to give it another shot. I'm going to give it another honest take. But I just felt like George Lucas really should have stepped back, at least for 3, and let somebody else with action directing and dialogue directing, like because he's shit at dialogue. Like the guy can't write it and he can't direct it. Not to be rude, but that's just the reality. So it's not that I don't appreciate everything that it was. I actually love the scenes that most people hate, the like famous no scene when he finds out that Padme's dead. Everybody panned that scene so hard. I was like, that makes perfect sense to me. He's brand new as a robot, so he's going to seem very jagged. He's got this mask on for the first time. He crushes the room. It didn't bother me. It didn't bother me.
Where y'all think Luke got his no from? Like, let's
go. Well, there you go. There's a good point. Not only that, when people were really upset about Anakin being really whiny in episode 2, that didn't bother me at all. I'm like, no, again, a sociopath is going to have mommy issues to the core. They're going to feel picked on. They're going to want to retaliate. This is where dictators come from. So it made perfect sense. But also,
he's a child. Right. He's also a child that has been told at whatever age that he's the prophecy, like he's going to lead these people, like, or that like, he's seen, and then he's also had visions of himself freeing slaves. Like he's a whole kid who's pretty much been like
Paul Atreides, if you will. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh
yeah. A real Chalamet.
Yeah.
What did you rate
sense for his character.
Episode 2, Tyler?
Oh, I didn't. I'm gonna give it a 2 because it's the second.
Okay, so a 2.
Damn.
I was asked, so I thought I would double check with you. We don't have a ton more time. We kind of spent a lot of time just talking about Star Wars kind of as a whole. It just kind of became a thing. Yeah. I even have episode 1 on VHS. I don't know where I put it.
Oh,
come on,
VHS. It's back here somewhere.
I like a special one too with like.
Do you have the?
You gotta show the
OG.
You gotta post it somewhere. You gotta post it on like
with the
real study
VHS tape.
Oh, okay, so that's here. Well, since we're on air, I will show you this because it actually. The gold one, Tyler, is actually not the original. This is the third VHS release, technically.
Oh, that's the one I remember.
Isn't there another one where like somebody else's face lines up with his face?
Yeah, so Darth Vader in the THX release, this was they redid the film, they redid the sound.
That's the one I have.
And this funnily kind of like, lines up nicely. But neither of those are the original. This is the original trilogy that actually came out. And what's crazy about this, and this is the part
the CBS Fox version.
Yes. And this when I was young, this was the thing. Like it says Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. They are not, they're in really good shape.
I believe these are unwatched. DPI then?
Before what?
before all the
before
CGI, like the
edition.
untouched.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. So this
Yeah.
here, let me put this
Yeah.
back properly. So
Like
I don't
way
drag
before.
them
Like
out.
this is
Yeah.
that's the original cut.
This
Right?
these
I want to see
have
that.
this says Star Wars at the beginning of A New Hope, and that's all it says. It says nothing else.
That's crazy.
So this one also is an original because they just updated the quality of the sound and the video. This is the special editions. This has all
That's the one that has
the
that's
crap.
the one that has Anakin at the end.
Right. This
Yeah.
no,
I mean, that has, like,
no.
Hayden.
Yeah.
This one still has the
that's
old
the one
guy.
that has Hayden.
It's
Oh,
the
okay.
Blu-ray
It says
release that has
Those are the
Anakin.
original.
That's
Okay.
conversions.
Okay.
I know too much about these
Because the
releases.
Blu-ray release.
But in the special edition, they still changed the song though, right?
Yep, they did change the
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
They changed the Ewok.
Because I actually like that. I actually like in the Blu-ray ones, they put Anakin.
I'm pretty sure
they
the
put Hayden
actors.
Christensen's
So
Anakin.
Jeremy Bulloch was the guy that played the original Boba Fett in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And when they replaced his voice with the actor that then played Jango Fett, I felt that was kind of a slap in his face. And I felt like they probably should have kept the credits at least saying original voice or something, but they didn't. They took it all out, which means they cut him out of movie history. And I swear there should be some bylaw at SAG that prevents that from happening. Like,
no, totally.
But they cut him out.
But
and the same thing with the old guy.
Which
They cut him out.
version? Which version did they cut him out of though?
The special edition, or as soon as episode
Well,
1,
the-
3, and 2 and 3 existed, when they re-released
Those
it, so
ones
he's
after.
not in the Blu-ray.
Right.
They added his voice.
Okay. I mean, I do like. I feel. I don't know. I don't feel any way about it. I won't lie. I don't feel no type of way about that. But I will say that. I don't know. I kind of look at it as like different versions for different people. I guess you could say, like, because I feel like if I bought, because like if I grew up with like the prequel trilogy, and then I'm like, oh, I need to go buy the original trilogy, I'm gonna get it on Blu-ray. I'm not gonna get it on nothing less than that. So you putting in Hayden Christensen makes that feel great for me, because I'm like, that's so cool. So to me, it's the same as if somebody heard.
I would agree with you.
The Jango Fett.
If they
version,
released both
I don't-
versions, but they still have not released the original versions on either DVD or not on DVD, on Blu-ray. There is a version on DVD, but it's like the original trilogy, and the original non-touched is actually on the bonus disc. It's not even the main disc.
Right, it's not even the
and
main.
If you have a weird computer, it's going to put the format all weird. Like it kind of sucks. Like there's no copy.
I
of
get
it
what you're saying.
for
I
us.
just don't think he's erased from history, because he's still a part of these movies. He's still a part.
But
of
you can't
some type
watch
of
those
edition of
movies.
these movies.
So
But
if you have a
that's the thing, you can't
digital
get
and
them.
Blu-ray,
They're
you
not Disney
can't buy
Plus.
them.
They're not on. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So that's
Like they're
never mind.
gone. Like they're on VHS
I take
tapes
back
and
what I said
DVDs.
then.
Yeah, if you don't have
And that's it.
VHS,
This is the only way you can see him act as
His original,
Boba
right.
Fett.
Oh, okay. Well, I take back what I said then. I thought you could still get like a version.
No,
Never
you
mind.
cannot. So the newest copy that exists of Star Wars in a digital format that is not touched is this DVD set that I have right here, and that's it. That was released in 2005, I think. Or
No, that is
2004.
nuts. Okay, never
So,
mind.
yeah.
Yeah, that is nuts though.
I wish because
get
when they
that.
did like Close Encounters, there's 3 versions. Blade Runner, there's 5 versions. You can get a disc that has all those versions, and you can watch whatever one you want.
Yeah,
That's great.
I had that
That's what they
Blade.
should do.
I had that Blade Runner set where it's like in like the
Oh, yeah,
Halliburton,
yeah.
like case and everything. It's like
That's
so
crazy.
cool. Like man, but I had all 5 versions.
Mhm.
of that damn movie.
So this movie, there would be a director's cut of this movie. Interesting, because there's a couple scenes that have been cut out. The pod racing scene is actually almost 7 minutes longer than what you see in
Oh
this
jeez.
film. You get to see
That was
almost the
yeah.
entire race,
And that was already long.
It is
Pretty long,
It's really
I know.
long.
It was already like a very Fast and Furious.
It's like a third of the film.
It's a
moment.
lot.
It was
It's a lot.
It was Fast and Furious in space. I don't care what nobody say. It was very.
Well,
No, I agree.
Very-
I'm with you on that
nuts.
one.
Yeah.
George Lucas, if you guys haven't never seen American Graffiti, that was
he
his
loves
first.
racing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
racing is his thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Uh-huh.
I feel like old white men in Hollywood love cars for some odd reason. They must have grew up with
I
like
think
the
it's just
streetcar
old
because
days.
cars were
I
cool
don't
when
know,
they were
grew up with
kids.
something.
They were all very
Right.
unique and different, and the
Yeah.
cars now they all look identical.
Right.
And they're very boring. Like cars now are very boring, unless you get into like the ridiculous.
I mean, my
supercars and
dad
stuff.
fixed
Yeah.
cars, and we had a old classic Monte Carlo and stuff like that. I've never won.
Oh,
I never
nice.
got into cars. I think cars look. Think they look great, and I'm always like pointing out. I think it's just like part of my dad and me, and I'm just like, oh, that's a oh yeah, look at that chrome lining. Like that's I got moments like that in my life where I do stuff like that. But I've never been. But I promise you, Hollywood got some of the most car enthusiast people like ever. It's very interesting to see like all these old men keep coming out with these shows riding in special cars. I'm like, all right.
I think that film coincides with whatever can be filmed. The more I study early Hollywood, if cars had been what they were in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, there would have been even more car films. Like cars were really boring when film started, so there was no reason to do a ton of car films because they were more like gags or shticks. They were not like, let's focus on this Chevelle Super Sport. Like, of course I want to watch that car drive around. It's beautiful.
Also, like, also from a technical perspective, it was much harder to shoot any kind of car stuff.
Right.
You know, like the rigs were, and I mean, they're still insane, but the rigs back then were all like, that's why, like, when I like look at Touch of Evil, that opening sequence still blows my mind to this day because it was all still on a crane and they moved that thing around the streets. I'm like, I need to see this. Like, how the hell did they do that back then? Like, it's insane.
Some of the things they did in order to get those shots was insanity. You weren't here over April, and we talked about Babylon. Yeah. Did you ever watch Babylon?
Oh yeah, I have the Steelbook.
Nice. Okay, so I take it there. You like it then? Okay.
Yes, I loved it.
I think Brian saw it before everybody.
Oh, I'm sure. But he wasn't here when we talked about it.
Or anything.
Right.
But like,
the accuracy of that film to the era.
Oh man,
is too spot on. So I've been reading.
That whole
the oral
sequence
history
when they're trying to like get the sound and like
that's the one I was telling him about.
Oh my god, it's so good.
And it's spot on.
Like,
yeah, I was stressing. I was like, holy shit.
And did you think about the camera guy too? I was like,
oh
that's a hot box, right?
So
and then it comes up and then you're like,
those worked they really made those hot boxes, except they would have 3 cameramen with 3 assistants in those fucking things in the middle of the Mojave Desert. Like, what the fuck were they thinking? Like, they were insane back then.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that movie. Yeah, I'm really surprised at the hate that it got. Like,
well, it's seminal to Hollywood. Like like it's Hollywood making a movie about Hollywood, and it was more meta than it deserved to be. Like the fact that the sound team knew they were making a movie about people learning about sound. Like I love the farts, the like little things, but they're so key to the film.
Oh no, totally.
I can continue talking. It's become one of my favorites pretty quickly. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
But listening to the oral history of Hollywood, listening to these actors actually talk about this era is interesting. And I wanted to bring this up because there's this, still to this day, this idea that the studio system that Hollywood created was a really bad thing. Like that's kind of like always looked at as a bad thing. And listening to all of the actors, producers, and directors from the era, they were like, I don't know what everybody's talking about. I had a job. We got to make whatever movies we wanted. They had sets built in days instead of weeks. Like it was a beautiful system. And it's interesting because I wonder if it's people from the outside that seem to have a problem with it. And in hindsight, finding out some of the things that maybe some potential executives did or individuals did is a problem. But as a system, it seemed to make movies become bigger. And
I think I think from a actor perspective, maybe it was great. I don't think as a creative, like as a director or a writer or any of those kind of things, it was great for them. Like they had no control really over their films. They were cranking stuff out like an assembly line, literally. Like you'd see like a one set built next to another set, and there'd be like a camera right there, you know, and like a camera here, and like it was just like they're cranking them out. But I think there wasn't a lot of quality back then either, you know what I mean? So I think it's one of those things.
It's a double-edged sword.
I loved it. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So,
but there are a lot of people that see it as and that's still true to today. That the idea that in the 70s people finally started saying, "Fuck you, we're going to make the movies we want to make."
Well, then in the 90s too, even when like the indie film movement came, like Sex, Lies, and Videotape was kind of like Steven Soderbergh is widely considered to be like the father of indie cinema. And after that point, because I was like 89ish, and even Spike Lee, you know, with damn it,
Do the Right
Thing. Yeah, that those kind of films like really kickstarted something for the 90s. But to the 70s too.
Can we put Kevin Smith in there? I mean, he financed his own film, 25,000.
Yeah. No, Kevin Smith
Blair
is
Witch,
definitely because he was, because
Mhm.
in those early to mid '90s era was like, big for indie cinema. But yeah, that's one of the reasons I love the '70s era of cinema too, is because they're just doing different things.
Well, I think the studios finally were like, we got nothing. We're not. The '60s is full of a lot of not amazing. There's some good, but there's The reason I found out that a lot of the '30s films are just kind of blah 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 and slow paced is they literally were the sound people were forcing that on them, and they were like, everybody has to enunciate every single word or we'll kill you. And so it became more about sound for like 10 years than it did about the pictures.
Which is why that kind of like, what is it called? That type of accent that a lot of people had.
Oh, the Midwest, not Midwestern. There is a name
like
for it.
The Mid-Atlantic or whatever
there
it's
it is,
called.
the Mid-Atlantic. That's
something like that. Yeah, but that very like sing-soundy like way of talking. I think was on purpose too for sound. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting though that this accent, the one that you and I speak with, or actually all of us speak with, is this now sought after accent because it's now considered the clearest. I'm not saying that it's a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying if you look at news anchors always have this type of accent for that reason. Yeah. So it's just interesting. The more I learn about movies, the more I want to learn about movies, and it's just a wild, like constantly learning about them.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
So
what you'll really learn, a big way to learn is like to make one. Get out there and make one.
I've got some storyboards for a little 1 minute short that I want to make because even that will teach me a lot. So it's just a little like short horror because you don't have to do much dialogue with horror. There's not a lot other than just specific types of camera movement that we have to do, and I have that green screen. So
when you learn too about like departmental stuff, the hierarchy of a film set, the process of like even leading up to when you're about to call action, there's like a series of things that you have to do right before you even call action, like and a lot of people don't like realize that, but it's just like helps everyone that's near set or on set be in like on the same page and get ready to shut the hell up, basically, and because we're about to shoot. So
those big sets and all the PAs are like rolling.
Exactly.
You just hear it all the way across the set.
Lock that set up, right? I know. I can't tell how many times I've like
to get a group of people together to do something is hard. To get a group of people to get together to do something properly is even harder.
Yeah.
So I can imagine.
It's amazing when it's such an amazing experience to like do that and make even like a student film or like a small thing. You have all these people, you still have like 20 people, like all the same goal, and they're all doing different things, and it's all so much talent and creative.
Nice nuts,
thing like it's just such a unique thing. Like
it's also like crazy that everyone like I don't know, at least my experience, it feels like the director is the only one who really like is seeing what's happening, and like everyone's like making it happen for the most part, but they're like, what is happening? Like, what is this gonna look like later?
It's like that's the thing.
Completely trusting you.
It's like weird choreography that shouldn't look like choreography. And I think that's
organized
beautiful.
chaos for sure.
It is. It's amazing.
Even in the videos that I make for work now, like because every once in a while we get to do some like more produced things, and we do a lot of things with like our CEOs and our founder of the whole company that we put them in these videos, and we'll make them do these ridiculous things, and they're like, they just trust us. They're like, we have no idea what's going on right now, but we're just gonna trust you guys. And then they see the end product, and they're like, we don't know how you guys do it, but it works every single time. But exactly. But it's insanity when we're shooting it. We have no idea what's going on. But it's like, it's so fun to do that.
Yeah. I did like one episode of a TV show here in Detroit. I did Detroit 187 when that show was on. I was like an extra in that show. And I always hate it because the moment you see me, I step out of frame. The moment the camera comes, the moment like I'm in frame, but the moment the camera comes, like if this is me and the camera's got to come, I'm like, and I'm out of the frame. Like, but you see me like leaving it. But I remember because I had to be on that set for like.
And you're on set for like 12 hours.
Day.
Yeah,
No, like, I had to be there for like 4. Like they were like, we need you for at least 8 hours, and it went longer than that. And
I know it's insane.
It was like, I just wanted to get like my bid in. So whenever they need somebody to do something, I was like, yeah, I got that. No problem. I got that. I can do it. And they were like, and at that time I had like this really shitty red car, and they were like, we need somebody. Does anybody have a red car? I was like, I got a red car.
Yeah.
What you need me to do? Like, they could have been like, crash it. I'd have been like, so what you giving me the cigarettes a car? But what was so kind of like interesting about it, because this was like my first time like being in that type of world with like actual professional people like behind the camera, and like, you know, it's amazing everything they do to like keep the continuity of the scene, but also rally all the people to be like, hey, it's time, because it is time to be quiet. Like there has to be like controlled sound in a sense, where it's like you kind of need that background sound a little bit, but they'll pump it up with some stuff, but you have to still be quiet. And like, I had to drive my car backwards. That's how I learned how to drive my car backwards, because I lied like on a set, because like every actor would be like, put horseback riding on your resume, and you just figure it out when you get there. So the person was like, do you have a red car? And I'm like, yeah, I got a red car. And then they were like, you know how to drive backwards? And I was like, yeah.
Right.
Did not know how to drive backwards.
And
I learned how to drive. The only way I drive, you know, that's how I get to work. That's how I got here, actually.
You listened too much to Joey. That's the problem.
I know. Right.
It's a moot point at this point. You know
it is a moot point. I love
it's
that.
A moot point.
Yeah. It's like a cow's opinion. It doesn't matter.
Like, yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It's moo.
Right. It's moo.
Yeah.
And I love Rachel, because Rachel's like, have I been living with him too long, or does that make sense? Like,
I know.
Because it makes sense. But yeah, I learned how to drive backwards. I learned how to like parallel park essentially and drive backwards on a set of a TV show. So that's cool. Like a fun.
There's a lot of pressure too.
Oh, sir.
Yeah.
That was, and I think that's why I succeed. I do flourish under pressure like that. Like I always have. Like when I was at swim meets. And
so that's what we need to do. We need to up the pressure on Lala. That's what we got to do.
Oh man, it'd be crazy if you up the pressure. I'm just like, I felt like my brain, something clicks, and I'm like,
we need a 1,000-word essay by next Sunday about why you love Star Wars.
There you go.
It's never going to happen, but I can make a video about why I love Star Wars.
But that's great. You got like
I said 1,000 words. I didn't say written essay. I just said essay. Let's just, you know.
Yeah, I could do that. Very true.
So in the future, we are going to have another show where we are going to debate some topics. There are some topics that have naturally come up on the show. We don't have time tonight, so I'm not even going to like mention those particular topics.
Do it.
I won't, because it will start it. But look forward to that. We will do another episode where we have one. Star Wars is just too big. We bit off a lot, and just.
Even in this one, we went all over the place.
Right.
Which
it's hard
honestly,
not to.
I actually love that. But I feel like we still could do a Star Wars debate if we decide what that topic is.
We have to figure out.
We stay within that.
We'd have to have some contention though, because I don't think we all disagree on Star Wars.
But we have, but there's, I mean, if we might in the new trilogy.
I liked it.
I mean, Snitty and I very much disagree about Rogue One.
Yeah, but I'm not like, I don't have stakes in that one. Like, I can understand why people liked it. It's just not for me, mostly because I don't like prequels. And it's not that I don't think that they did a good job of picking a bunch of characters that I didn't know anything about.
It's like, you know what's going to happen.
But exactly. Like, and to me, the stakes are never high enough. So that's just me. I don't hate on it. And I love Solo, which throws people off. But I thought that was just a fun movie. And
I've never seen that movie before.
I liked it too.
I gotta watch that movie.
Don't walk in with Harrison Ford in mind. Just walk in.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I know it's not. No. I own that movie. I know it's not Harrison Ford. I own that film. And I still never seen it.
But even the kid, like, they didn't ask him to act like Harrison, which I'm glad.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
Just like, be your own Han Solo.
I appreciate that. Yeah, because I think that would have made it way worse. Like, hey, do your best Harrison Ford impression while you're doing
I wouldn't want him to be Harrison Ford, but I would have.
No. There's only a handful of people.
Was good, though,
I would want him to have like the mannerisms. I like the mannerisms of Harrison Ford.
Donald Glover does as good as Lando as I think Robert De Niro does as Vito Corleone. Like, he does a great job of implementing.
What about Josh Brolin as what's his name in Men in Black? Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh, he did a good job too.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
good.
yeah, he was pretty good as. Yeah. That was pretty good.
Solid.
But that's also good casting. Like that, if you're gonna do it, the casting has to be so spot on.
But he said that he studied, man. He said that he listened to that man in videos talk. He said he was learning that little accent. I said he did a great job.
They're both in No Country for Old Men.
But they're both kind of like they got that gruffy thing going on already.
Stoic-y type of like I just like one of my favorite things is like I think I watch people react to that movie now and they'll be like, so dang, how old is Josh Brolin? And right around the time they say that, Will Smith's character is always like, how old are you now? And he's like 34, and then he's like, oh, you got some city miles on you, huh? Like so like
city miles.
And I always find that funny because any reactor that I have watched that movie always brings up the fact that Josh Brolin looks like he should not be playing a 34-year-old, and then Will Smith says that, and it just confirms it, and they're fine.
No, it's going to be like season 5 of Stranger Things, where everybody's 26 and
everyone's in college, but they're still.
You're like, look, it's Millie Bobby Brown. She's a woman now, not 11.
Exactly.
Like that's weird. Or Joe Carey, I saw him. He's looking 30s, and they're like, yeah, he just got out of high school. It's going to be
singing
bad.
that song that everybody knows. What is it?
Right.
I love how Tyler's here, but I don't see his camera anymore.
What did he do? Oh, Tyler left. No, he's here. But that happened to us last time. Anyway, we should of course move on. If there's going to be a show next week, it will be minus MrSniDBitS. It will be at least these three and probably Ray. But I'll be here, but not here. I'm taking a sabbatical, but the show will continue. So, you will not see me on screen for the next while. I don't know what the determining factor is there on when I'll feel comfortable. But yeah. That said,
and once we figure out what's going on, we'll send like some not email, but like text message. Not those either. Jesus,
it'll be released on our social medias.
Exactly.
Thank you. My God,
what are the kids doing these days?
What are the kids doing? Smoke signals? Who got a pigeon? Like, what are we doing?
We're gonna do a prayer chain.
I was thinking falconry was a good way to go. Like,
everybody got your cups. Put your cups to your ear. I'll tell you the news. Like, what am I talking about? But yes, we will send out like stuff on like TikTok and Instagram and stuff when we figure out like what we're doing. So
still look forward to a show next week. It will not have MrSniDBitS. At least not on camera. No bits. This has been week 25 of season 3 of The Real Study. We do appreciate all of you so much. Thanks for being here talking Star Wars with us. And we will see you next time.
All right.
We shall. Don't forget to go follow us on our social media and join the Discord. Come talk to us.
Oh, and Revenge of the 5th. Yeah, we forgot to say that.
Yes, Revenge of the 5th.
Revenge of the 5th.
Happy Cinco de Mayo.
Yes.
That should make me laugh, but it did. It's just how he said it. It's just like Happy Cinco de Mayo. It's just very calm.